I've been getting a lot of questions in my inbox lately about high cortisol versus low cortisol and high leptin versus low leptin. So today I want to talk about that briefly in this video and how I look at these through the lens of quantum biology and circadian biology and helping people to achieve quote unquote hormone balance. So stay tuned. Welcome back. My name is Sarah. This is the Sarah Kleiner Wellness YouTube channel. A little bit about me. I am a board certified applied quantum biology practitioner with the American Naturopathic Medical Board. I am also a certified nutrition coach with the National Academy of Sports Medicine. And I've been through Dr. Tom Cowan's new biology clinic certification as well, on the side of actually working with people, because certifications are fantastic, but can you apply them and do they help people? I've worked with clients all over the world for the last 10 plus years on different nutritional strategies, lifestyle, mindset, and just looking at health through this holistic lens. So yes, I know a lot from certifications, but none of that really matters if it doesn't work and you can't apply it to everyday living and to people, and I also do this stuff myself. I like to think of myself as a little bit of a walking testimonial, as I have been 100 pounds overweight multiple times in my life and really struggled with a lot of chronic low-lying inflammation for years and years. And you can look back on videos at this YouTube channel, which I have not taken down yet. I might do that at some point in the future, but as the day of releasing this episode, the middle of August 2024, I still have a lot of videos that show me in 2020 when I was really dealing with a lot of this inflammation because I did not understand how to put these things of quantum biology and circadian biology into a protocol that was supportive of hormone balance and shifting hormones, as I am, 45 years old now. So I do really believe in this stuff. Not only has it worked for me, but I've seen it work for thousands of women and men as well in all ages and stages of life. So we'll talk about that in this video today. So let's just talk about this whole cortisol thing, because it's a thing that people are talking about quite a bit on the internet. I have done some free videos here on the YouTube channel about cortisol, shown cortisol patterns, talked about light and cortisol. I want to talk specifically today about high versus low, sex hormones, and leptin. So a lot to cover here, just to address some questions that have, again, come through my inbox. And I want to also let you know, if you enjoy this video and you want to dive deeper, I have a couple things that will allow you to do that. Number one, I have a free cortisol guide that will give you illustrations and some really easy things you can implement in your daily life. I also have a $7 cortisol course that's going to give you a good 20-minute video explaining these things deeper, as well as a brand new 40-minute module that is actually day 4 from my 21-day leptin reset course. Just pulled it out of day 4. It's a 40-minute module just talking again about how these master hormones, cortisol, melatonin, and leptin, are so important to really get the signaling down and quote unquote balanced in order to have optimal sex hormone and thyroid hormone production for all ages and stages of life. So that's in that $7 cortisol course. I'll talk about it briefly here in this video, as well as a full holistic program with nutrition, special considerations for people in northern latitudes where the sun comes up later or earlier, depending on the time of year. That's all in that program too. So if you like this information, you want to dive deeper into it, I do have some more learning for you. And I have 13 free ebooks on my website too. Just go to www.sarahkleinerwellness.com and check out any of those 13 free ebooks, because I like to give free information too. So high cortisol versus low cortisol. First, you got to understand, and I'm going to show a little graph here. Let me pull this up. This is in my last cortisol video I did as well, that our cortisol is meant to be high at certain times and low at certain times. So when we're awake, we want cortisol to have a natural, beautiful rise and surge, and then come down so that we can start making melatonin. Cortisol and melatonin really oppose one another. So when cortisol is high, you are not able to secrete pineal melatonin, right? So we really want to understand hormones running on this circadian rhythm. Where leptin actually fits into this is that in the morning, when our cortisol is rising, we want leptin to actually be at its lowest point. That's where we have that nice, healthy appetite. And when melatonin is elevated and at its peak, that's when our leptin levels should also be at their peak and the most elevated, so that leptin is able to signal to the brain, this is how much stored energy I have on board. So tomorrow we're going to have the thyroid do this, the sex hormones do this. We have adequate stored energy on board, right? That can be body fat, and it can be stored blood sugar in the liver as well. So this is a communication that needs to happen at night. We need to have melatonin also elevated for this to happen. So these hormones really work on a circadian rhythm, and it's a matter of appropriate signaling and balance. So again, people come to me, I have high cortisol, I have low cortisol, I have elevated leptin, I have low leptin. These hormones fluctuate over a 24-hour period. So when did you test them? What method did you use? Was it saliva? Was it blood? Like there's so many variables when understanding this and what's important in either situation. So let's just say you do have low cortisol. We have to reestablish the signaling. We have to get that signaling back online, back on board. Same thing with high cortisol. We have to reestablish appropriate signaling. So it's more helpful to say cortisol balance and getting cortisol regulated versus lowering cortisol or raising cortisol, because it's all really dependent upon the time of day and even the time of year. We're meant to have a little bit higher cortisol levels in summer versus winter, right? So hormones also shift on a seasonal basis as well as a 24-hour basis. Same thing with our gut microbiome. No systems are just this independent thing where we can throw in an ancillary supplement or adaptogen and get the desired result. This is why sometimes hormone replacement therapy can go so haywire for people, because you put in a hormone and the body can funnel it into the cortisol pathway. So it creates excess cortisol in the body. This can happen with testosterone, or it can aromatize it into estrogen. So we as humans, we think we're so smart. We're going to take melatonin, we're going to take vitamin D, which is a hormone, and we're going to get this specific result because of scientific literature we've looked at, and we've made this decision, and our body is going to do something different. And this can also depend on your cellular hydration. Your perceived level of stress is also going to impact how your sex hormones are made and funneled. So I'm going to pull up a quick little slide here to go through. This is one slide out of multiple slides that are in my 21-day leptin reset course on day 4, as well as in that bonus module in my cortisol course that's $7. And those are both linked in the show notes for you. But I just want to go through this to explain this briefly for the sake of this video. Before I really go into this slide, just really what people don't understand, what's really low hanging fruit, is this impact of light and how light impacts our physiology. This is what I talk about here on the channel, and this is what I'm going to talk about here in this little slide. So this, again, is a slide from the cortisol course as well as my 21-day leptin reset. It's day 4 of the leptin reset. So when we look at these master hormones, cortisol, leptin, melatonin, it is about reestablishing appropriate signaling. So whether you are low cortisol or high cortisol, this information is going to be helpful for you. Same thing if you're low leptin versus high leptin. What it means is that energy information download is not happening, and we have to reestablish appropriate signaling. So a lot of people are like, I have this condition, that condition, I have this and that. And I understand, like, we all have different bioindividuality and things that we have to look at. But on the whole, for any condition, reestablishing this, and this is not medical advice, by the way, reestablishing this appropriate signaling is very important if we want all the downstream things to work properly. So this over here on the side is a graph that I pulled off of a scientific study, and the link to that is in the cortisol course as well. But this is really just what your sex steroid hormone pathways look like. It starts with cholesterol. So if your nutrition is this low fat, fat free, it's going to be more hard for your body to have healthy hormones. Same thing with eating low protein. Protein is an essential building block for your hormones as well. So this starts with cholesterol. But just to back up a little bit, a healthy cortisol surge, so whether you're high or low, you want a healthy cortisol surge to reestablish this signaling. This is going to be triggered by your eye perceiving blue light from sunrise. So blue light begins to come onto the horizon at sunrise. If you want to get out there before, there's an abundance of red and near infrared light. Very anti-inflammatory, very soothing, very calming, helps to build exclusion zone water and rehydrate those receptor sites. So that can also help with the signaling as well, hydration. But this is going to signal the clock in your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus to begin the production of cortisol in the adrenal glands. So this is a healthy cortisol surge. It's going to start your day, start your circadian rhythm, and prepare you for the day ahead. This morning sunlight time is really going to serve as an adaptogen, because if you have low cortisol, you got to get out there, and that amount of blue light that's available at sunrise will help your body make the appropriate amount of cortisol. And if you have too much cortisol, it can put the brakes on that cortisol production getting out there. And it's also balanced with, as I mentioned, the red and near infrared light. Sunglasses disrupts this. Glass disrupts this because most modern glass blocks out red, infrared, and UV. So it's going to block things out so that you're not going to get that appropriate signaling. And we really want to have this unfiltered access to sunrise. Very important. And I go over troubleshooting methodology. If you've got busy life schedules, kids, live in a really northern place where the sun doesn't come up till late or comes up ridiculously early, I go through a lot of that nuance specifically in the cortisol course, and the 21-day leptin reset is your most comprehensive way to get this. And I'm going to continue making free videos here on YouTube. So stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed if you want more free content, especially as we move towards fall. I'll talk more about that on the channel. So don't stress there. Again, just to reiterate, we are meant to get the surge of cortisol because your eyes see the blue light and it's changing, it's increasing, it's going to communicate with that time clock in your brain to kick off several important processes. Every single cell and organ system in your body, including your gut, including your detox pathways, especially your endocrine system, they all have a circadian clock in front of them. So you can spend a lot of money on supplements and detox protocols that won't necessarily work for you or work as well if your light and dark signals, if these patterns, the cortisol, leptin, and melatonin patterns, if they're a mess, good luck with getting these things to work appropriately for you, right? I've had so many people with like going through these mold detox protocols and they're like, it didn't work or it made me worse because they didn't optimize these basics that are really free for you to optimize. So that time clock, we call it the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or the SCN. It sits on top of the hypothalamus, and this regulates so much of our physiology. And in our adrenal glands specifically, this is where we're coming to this hormone issue. We've got tons of cells, and inside those cells are mitochondria. We talk about mitochondria here a lot on the channel. So mitochondria receives these light signals, and it begins to make pregnenolone, which is the start of, again, here on the side, the steroid hormone cascade. And this is the process of making our sex hormones. So in the morning, just to briefly sum it up, supposed to get this appropriate amount of blue light from sunlight. If you're looking at a phone screen, turning on overhead lights, you're telling your body it's the middle of the day in the middle of the summer. So you can think about a dysregulated cortisol pattern from that. Then you're rushing around because your amount of perceived stress is going to, that pregnenolone is either going to go to, it's supposed to be parceled off to making the appropriate amount of cortisol. And the rest of the pregnenolone is supposed to go to your sex hormones to make progesterone, estrogen, DHEA, all these kind of downstream hormones, the pregnenolone gets funneled and parceled off. If you're in a perceived state of stress and your eyes are seeing a lot of blue light that is not natural and is too much blue light for that time of day, we're going to have downstream dysregulation of these sex hormones. So we're meant to funnel this pregnenolone into the cortisol pathway because, again, we're supposed to have a natural surge of cortisol in response to light. So our morning cortisol surge is a healthy surge. We want to have that happen. This, again, if you have low cortisol or high cortisol, this applies to you. And kickstart this timing mechanism for the day, the metabolism. So a lot of people are having dysregulated cortisol surges and hormonal surges from very beginning of the day. And then you're looking at your phone and you're checking your email, which I know some of us have to do some of that for work, but maybe not going on social media and seeing like mean comments and, you know, the things that we see on social media, maybe not doing that first thing in the morning, because that again can heighten this level of perceived stress or threat. So we want this light to be this primary signal. And then we also want to understand that different hormones are going to be at different levels depending on the time of the month it is, our age and stage of life. So I see this being very helpful for people in my women in perimenopause and menopause as well, because these hormone levels are doing a natural shift. They're starting to have a natural shift and a natural change. And I've had so many women in perimenopause and menopause do this work and come to me and say, I started wearing the blue blockers at night and I stopped having hot flashes. What gives? Like, they're not mad about it, but they're just like, how is that so powerful? Well, when you understand that after sunset, our eyes are not supposed to see blue light. We are not supposed to have a cortisol surge at night because we want to start making melatonin, and understanding this surge of cortisol again is going to start this whole steroid hormone cascade. So you're having a cortisol surge and these other sex hormones are possibly surging as well. You're going to have dysregulation, which can cause the hot flash. You also have to be holistic about it and look at your nutrition. You have to make sure your blood sugar is stabilized. So that's why I do have a pretty extensive nutritional program and protocol in my 21-day program as well, because it's light is crucial, but also blood sugar balance plays into that as well. And meal timing, time of day that you eat, the amount that you eat, all of that. So, you know, which hormones again get elevated after it funnels, pregnenolone goes to cortisol, and then it goes down the sex steroid hormone pathway, as you see this little chart here on the side. That's again going to depend on your hormonal rhythms, whether you're reproductive age or not. We still make these hormones in perimenopause and menopause. There are different pathways through which that we make them. Just because the ovaries have bowed out, we do have other ways of making these hormones. And so the level at which a lot of people will experience these perimenopausal and menopausal symptoms depend on to the level at which these hormones are optimized, cortisol, leptin, and melatonin. And I have women in my private community in their 50s, 60s, and 70s that they tell me this took away the menopause hell that I was in. And it was so much more simple. Now, am I against HRT? I'm not. And I let people go to a practitioner to do testing and do that. So I'm not going to say no, but I have seen it go sideways a lot of times because of this cortisol issue. And hormones, again, we think we're so smart. They can be aromatized into other things or create excess cortisol in the body. So you've got to be careful, and you really want to optimize these basics if you're going to go down that road. Okay. So we really, again, and perceived state of stress. So I'm going to stop sharing here. Your perceived state of stress is really important in this whole process as well. So doing things like grounding, and this is why hydration and eating in the morning before you have the coffee. I'm not against coffee. You don't have to give up coffee in my program. There's a misconception about that. If you want to have a little coffee, sure. Have it after you've seen sunrise, done some grounding, hydrated, ate something, stabilize your blood sugar in that regard, then have a little bit of coffee. But you got to work on keeping your body more in a state of balance in the morning. Everyone's like parasympathetic versus sympathetic. It's autonomic balance because you don't want to go into fight, flight, freeze and have your nervous system in this like shut down state. So there's a balance to everything. Everyone's like high this, low that. High. It's balance. It's about balance and it's about appropriate signaling. So is leptin docking to the brain to give this report at night? Is your cortisol rising in the morning and going down at night? Are you having a melatonin surge at night? These are the basics. Is leptin nice and low in the morning? And is it peaking at night with that melatonin peak? So we have to get these things down. And this largely is going to depend on your light signaling, getting your body more into this calmer, balanced state. And doing this work of light and dark signaling and syncing can be very, very helpful. So I hope this was helpful and really answers that question about high versus low. We're really going to come at it through this lens in a very similar manner. And then once you do this for a little bit, if we need to tweak, if we need to fine tune nutrition, if we need to throw in some extra support, we can do that. Those are not going to take away from this foundational work or change the way that we do the foundational work. But that's where we are helpful in my private community and in one-to-ones, or I can recommend different practitioners if you want someone to work with one-on-one. But the foundational work is for everyone. The foundational work is for men, is for women of reproductive age, is for women in perimenopause, is for women in menopause. The foundations are the foundations. This is a natural law. This is nature. This is how the human biology was meant to be in sync with these things. And when we break these natural foundational laws is when our body begins to send us a signal that something is not right. And I think it was Dr. Cassie Huckabee. I'm not sure if you've heard of her, but I really like her work a lot. She had a talk on her Instagram the other day, and she said, hormones are the effect, not the cause. And I was like, wow, that's huge. Yeah, dysregulated hormones are the effect of your lifestyle, of your nutrition, of the way that you're living, either in balance or out of balance with your environment, and not the cause of all the problems. Yeah, they're going to create some problems when they're out of balance, but that is because of your light environment, nutrition, nervous system, and your perceived stressors and stressors, period. I mean, everyone has stressors. I definitely can talk to that all day. We could be here all day, but let's just keep it simple for the video. Do the foundational work. I've got 13 free ebooks on my website, www.sarahkleinerwellness.com, if you want to start with my free stuff. And then I've got that $7 cortisol course and the 21-day leptin reset, which is really the most comprehensive way to approach this and get a full program that's going to help you no matter where you live in the world. And you can heal no matter where you are in the world. Don't let anyone tell you different. All right. I'll see you in the next video.